Hola muchachos, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. Aquí tienen el horario para hoy, jueves el 5 de mayo. Your homework due for today was the peer interview activity, De Niña Como Eras, not your project, but the one with the 15 squares where you were asking 15 different people the different questions that pertain to your project. This is kind of to get you to think about that project. For more information on how to go about that assignment, you can click on it in Canvas and watch the video. Learning targets are for you guys to continue to talk about special occasions and memories, holidays from when you were little. Your warm-up question is similar to the warm-up from last class. You guys are indicating how you greet each of the following groups of people using the key vocabulary from page 212. So, generalmente, ¿cómo saludas a tus profesores? How do you greet your teachers? Use one of the verbs from page 212. For example, por lo general, nos decimos buenos días or buenas tardes. We say to each other good morning or good afternoon. Nos abrazamos. Maybe you're really close with your teachers and you hug each other. Besarse is the verb to kiss. I would hope that that's not something that you engage in with your teachers. Darse la mano is to shake one's hand. You can use any of the vocab from page 212. Generalmente, ¿cómo saludas a tus abuelos? How do you greet your grandparents? Maybe you want to use the verb besarse or abrazarse to hug. Generalmente, ¿cómo saludas a tus compañeros de equipo? How do you greet your teammates? And then last question, generalmente, ¿cómo saludas a alguien a quien no conoces bien? So how do you greet someone that you know but you don't know well? An acquaintance, maybe someone in another class, or that you see around town. We're going to go over your project together in class as it's due next class. So we'll go over the rubric that I gave you. To find the copy of that rubric, also with a video explanation of the project, you can take a look on Canvas and watch the video for that. Pair practice exercises 7 and 8 is what we're going to do next, and then new notes on the preterite and the imperfect, and practice activities for that. So let's take a look at pages 217 and 218. And this is for the vocabulario en uso. So it's kind of an extension of the warm-ups we've had for the past couple classes where you're indicating how you greet the following, how you greet or say goodbye. Despedirse is the verb to say goodbye to the following groups of people. You can see these are vocabulary from page 212. Besarse, darse la mano, decirse hasta luego, decirse hola, ¿cómo estás? So, ¿cómo saludas y cómo te despides de las personas? How do you greet or say goodbye to the following people? For example, generalmente, ¿cómo saludas a tus primos? How do you greet your cousins? You're going to begin by saying por lo general. And then actually, instead of using los, you can conjugate the verb, whatever verb you choose, like how we did for our warm-up, right? Nos abrazamos. Conjugate the verb in the nosotros form and then use the reflexive pronoun nos to say that that action is done to each other. So number 1, generalmente, ¿cómo saludas a tus profesores? That's actually from the warm-up from today. ¿Cómo despides? ¿Cómo te despides de tus abuelos? How do you say goodbye to your grandparents? ¿Cómo te despides de los padres de tus amigos? How do you say goodbye to your parents' friends? Your friends' parents, forgive me. ¿Cómo saludas a tu papá o mamá? How do you greet your mom or dad? ¿Cómo te despides de tu mejor amigo? How do you say goodbye to your best friend? ¿Y cómo saludas a un amigo que no has visto recientemente? How do you greet a friend that you haven't seen in a while? So number 1 we've done already, since that was from the warm-up. ¿Cómo te despides de tus abuelos? Well, maybe similar to what you did for the warm-up for number 2. ¿Cómo saludas? How do you greet? ¿Cómo te despides? How do you say goodbye? Nos abrazamos. We give a hug goodbye. Nos decimos te quiero. We say I love you. Nos decimos hasta luego. We say see you later. You pick. So that's exercise 7, essentially an extension of your warm-up from the past couple classes. Exercise 8, and this is on page 218. ¿Qué hacían ustedes? What did you guys used to do to celebrate the following special occasions? So you're going to conjugate these verbs in the imperfect, as shown on page 196, in the question for part A. ¿Qué hacía tu familia cuando alguien celebraba un aniversario? Part A is always going to begin with ¿Qué hacía tu familia cuando? What did your family used to do when someone celebrated an anniversary, celebrated a birthday, went on a long trip, bought a new car, or celebrated a holiday? So all these verbs are going to be conjugated in the imperfect in the third person singular, the él, ella, usted form, because you're talking about someone. So for number 1, for example, ¿Qué hacía tu familia cuando alguien cumplía? Take off the IR and add the imperfect ending ia. Cuando alguien cumplía años, right? When someone had a birthday. And then you're going to choose one of these expressions from Estudiante B for your response. Felicitar is to wish. To wish someone something, like to wish someone a happy birthday. Reunir is to get together, it's a cognate. Hacer una fiesta is to have a party. Hacer un picnic, to have a picnic. Comprar is to buy. Regalar is to give as a gift. Invitar is to invite. No hacer nada is to do nothing. Hacer una reunión de familia is to have a family reunion. And despedirse is to say goodbye. So for number 1, for example, what did you guys used to do to celebrate a birthday? You can pick a couple of things. Hacíamos una fiesta. We had a party. That fits. Les regalábamos cosas muy bonitas. We gave them as a gift very beautiful things. Or you could replace cosas muy bonitas with the thing, like dinero or regalos, which are gifts. So pick any 2 of these verbs here, conjugate them in the nosotros form to indicate what you used to do for these occasions from part A. To celebrate a birthday, to go on a long trip, to buy a new car, and to celebrate a holiday. The new notes are on page 219. How we use the preterite and the imperfect together to describe a situation. And everything that's highlighted there in yellow should go in your notes, as well as what's in green. The yellow pertains to the imperfect. The green pertains to the preterite. So we talked about last chapter, the imperfect is used to describe regular or habitual actions, things that you used to do. The phrase there, the operative phrase is used to in English. But in addition to that, we use the imperfect to describe people, places, and situations in the past, to describe what someone, something was like in the past. We use the imperfect. To talk about a past action that does not have a specific beginning or end point. So like your childhood, for example. You're talking about what you used to be like as a kid. That's not a specific beginning or end point. That's generally speaking in the past. So no specific beginning or end. We'd use the imperfect for that as well. And then to describe a situation or background information when something else happened or interrupted the ongoing action. I want you to star this one. This is where we're going to focus a lot of our attention in level 3. How the 2 can be used together to paint a picture, to recount a story. For example, the example that we were looking at the beginning of chapter 4a when we looked at the imperfect. I was walking down the street when I found $100 on the sidewalk. Finding $100 is talking about something that happened and is being viewed as a completed action in the past. You don't find $100 on a habitual basis, right? It's a one-time deal. Things that are viewed as completed in the past are expressed in the preterite. Things that describe a situation or give background information, like walking down the street, that's giving us the setting, the background info. That action, walking down the street, would be expressed in the imperfect. Imperfect to provide the setting, and then the preterite to indicate the things that take place within that setting, right? Things that are viewed as completed actions. So the imperfect tense is used to tell what someone was doing, again, background info, when something happened, completed action. So we're going to do exercise 10 and 12 together. Really briefly, exercise 10, filling in the blanks with either the correct forms of the preterite or the imperfect. And the fundamental question you ought to ask is this action viewed as completed? Done. If that's the case, preterite. Is this action continuous, happening over the course of a longer period of time? Or is it providing us a background information, describing what someone was or something was like in the past? If that's the case, then we would use the imperfect. Queridos padres, acabo de pasar unos días increíbles. This is Patricia, an American exchange student in Spain, writing to her parents about a recent experience she had during La Semana Santa, Holy Week. Acabo de pasar unos días increíbles. I just had a few great days. Mi familia española, and then we're going to conjugate decidir either in the preterite or the imperfect. To decide to go to Sevilla, is that a completed action or a continuous action? It's a completed action, right? You decide to do something viewed as completed. So decidir in the preterite, take a look at page 110 for the preterite, page 194 for the imperfect. Taking a look at page 110, the verb decidir in the preterite, according to mi familia española, which is a singular subject, right? We're only talking about one family, and we're talking about it. That's third person singular. So the correct answer for number 1, decidió. D-E-C-I-D-I-O, with an accent above the O. Mi familia española decidió ir a Sevilla para celebrar la Semana Santa. Nosotros llegamos el martes por la noche. Llegar is the verb to arrive, also viewed as a completed action. It's not continuous. It's not describing people or places. It's indicating completed action. So, llegar in the nosotros form would be llegamos in the preterite. Now take a look at number 3. Las calles ya están llenas de personas. The streets were already full of people. Why are we going to use the imperfect for number 3? Because we're describing what a place was like, right? The streets were full of people. We're describing by using the adjective llenas, which means full. Or we're describing the situation or giving background information as well, right? So the imperfect of estar, since we're talking about las calles, excuse me, go to page 194 for conjugations of the imperfect. Las calles is plural. Third person plural would be estaban. E-S-T-A-B-A-N. Complete the rest of that for exercise 10 and exercise 12, which is on page 221, is actually going to be one of your speaking questions for the final exam. And that is, ¿cuántos años tenías? How old were you when you did these activities for the first time? You indicating your age is in the imperfect. Notice the imperfect ending, tenías. You doing these activities are in the preterite because these are completed actions in the past. Use the preterite for those. So let's take a look at the actions themselves. How old were you when you learned to walk? Aprender a caminar. ¿Cuántos años tenías cuando asististe a la escuela por primera vez? How old were you when you attended school for the first time? ¿Cuántos años tenías cuando fuiste a tu primer baile? How old were you when you went for your first dance? ¿Cuántos años tenías cuando leíste tu primer libro? How old were you when you read your first book? ¿Cuántos años tenías cuando fuiste al cine sin tus padres? How old were you when you went to the movies without your parents? ¿En cuántos años tenías cuando viste a un desfile por primera vez? How old were you when you saw a movie for your first time? Or saw a parade, desfile, saw a parade for the first time. So let's take a look at the example first, and then we'll do numbers 1 and 2 together. ¿Cuántos años tenías cuando is how you're always going to begin part A. And then the example is recibir tu propia bicicleta. ¿Cuántos años tenías cuando recibiste? You're going to conjugate these verbs in the to form in the preterite. Page 110 gives you those conjugations. ¿Cuántos años tenías cuando recibiste tu propia bicicleta? How old were you when you received your first bike or your own bike? Begin your response with yo tenía. Continue by indicating your age. Yo tenía 6 años cuando, and then take that verb that is being used, conjugate that verb in the yo form, in the preterite. And that's how we get recibí. Yo tenía 6 años cuando recibí mi propia bicicleta. Number 1, ¿cuántos años tenías cuando aprendiste a caminar? How old were you when you first learned how to walk? 2 years old? Yo tenía 2 años cuando aprendí, A-P-R-E-N-D-I with an accent, cuando aprendí a caminar. And then number 2, and we'll wrap up. ¿Cuántos años tenías cuando asististe a la escuela por primera vez? How old were you when you attended? Asistir is a false cognate. Looks like to assist, but it means to attend. How old were you when you attended school for the first time? Yo tenía 5 años. Yo tenía 5 años cuando asistí a la escuela por primera vez. So follow the model there to complete that conversation. That is exercise 12 on page 221. Only homework due for today is to submit submit your interview activity that we did together in class with the 15 squares. Your homework for next class is to submit your autobiographical presentation. Hasta luego, muchachos. Adiós.